for the winter visit, and they have been touring independently for many years with an impressive list of artists that includes Sunvolt, Jack Ingram, Bruce Robison, Kelly Willis, Hank III, Diana Ross. And they got together in 2006, and most recently they have been touring extensively with Steve Earle in support of that album that you just heard. So they're back in town performing tonight with their own show at the Mucky Duck, so it is our great pleasure to host them here in the KPFT studio. Chris, Eleanor, and Falcon, welcome to KPFT. We are great. We're so happy that you are here, and it's great that the full band is here. Now, let's introduce yourselves. Eleanor, Chris, Falcon. Two of you are Mastersons. One of them is the Lanyap, I understand.
He's close enough to. He's basically a Masterson. He's the best man in our wedding. So.
Oh, that's great. So, full disclosure, you are married, of course.
Yes, we are married.
and that's wonderful. And y'all met at a festival, right?
Mm-hmm. We met in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, at that big skiing Texas music festival that they have up there, and he was playing with Jack Ingram, and I was with Susan Gibson, and we just met and at a party, kind of cowering in the corner, and the rest is history.
You were mutually cowering.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It wasn't one or the other of you. You were both.
No, it was a big sort of fratty party, and
I've heard of that festival, but I hear it's a lot of fun. So and something really good came out of it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So that's great. That's terrific. Well, now y'all each have had really terrific careers independently. So I want to kind of hear what y'all were doing before you got together. Now, Chris, you've been playing in Houston for a really, really, really long time. I mean, you're not that old, but you got started really young. Do you remember the first time you played in Houston?
Oh man, probably the first time one of the first times I stood on a stage was around the corner from the studio here on the Westheimer Arts Festival years ago. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think the first time I went to Rockefeller's I was 8 years old.
Wow.
Probably.
Well, I heard the first time you actually played you were 13. True or false?
Truthfully, is probably before that. I mean, that might have been the first time I got paid to play. I don't know. I mean, growing up here, it was rich in experience, and we both really love Houston.
Well, that's great. And Chris, you were playing at the Satellite Lounge, you were playing at the Big Easy, and you had a lot of a blues focus when you got started, right? Oh,
yeah, absolutely.
And how did you kind of evolve to playing with Jack and Hank III?
Yeah, I sort of grew up. That was hard. It was hard to escape around here, and there was so much great, learning how to play, going to blues jams here in town, but getting to see, Jimmy T99 Nelson and Joe Guitar Hughes and Albert Collins playing at Rockefeller's every Christmas time. The Big Walter Price. There was so much, so much great music here. And that definitely shaped the player I am, and it still does.
You can hear those influences of both the genre, all the genres that that have influenced you are kind of evident in what you'll play, which is really terrific. I mean, that's kind of wonderful. Now, you also produced one of our favorites albums, John Evans. So tell us about how you got started working with him.
Well, I have to, full disclosure, I think that I didn't produce that record.
Really?
No, it's funny. I think it came out in the Houston Press.
It did.
Someone had forwarded that to me, and I mean, John did that with Steve Christensen,
you've worked with,
whose name is also worth mentioning.
Right, of course, from Sugar Hill.
Yeah, I mean, he did. He co-produced our record with us, along with most of the records coming out on New West right now.
Sure.
I introduced him to Steve Earle, and he did engineered the Towns record.
I did not know you were the connection there. That's great. And certainly
absolutely was, and that's why I get a good deal on that guy now.
and that's
I helped him get a Grammy.
Hey, that worked for him.
No, so Steve and John were making that record together, and
Steve Christensen, not Steve.
Yeah, Yeah, Steve Christensen and John were making that record together.
Well, maybe it's that transitive thing of you knew Steve and Steve
Yeah.
knew John.
Well, and John and I had made some music together, but my directive, I was living in New York already, and John wanted to make a record that was outside the box, from what he'd been doing. These, country records and they basically just told me to be as out there as I could be, and I was like, okay.
Well, there you go. Well, that worked. Well, now speaking of a lot of different directions, one of the great directions that you've done, you played with Sunvolt for a number of years, and tell me how you got connected with them and how that experience was.
How did I? I guess I first met Jay at a festival in Holland in '03. I was over there with Bobby Bear Jr. And I met Jay then. Then I was here in Texas. Oh yeah. Thank you.
That's what Eleanor's here for. Is just to fact checking.
There's a lot of names to keep straight. It gets harder.
It's earlier in the day.
Every year. So I had met Jay, so we'd already had that connection. I think Jay had seen me play with Jack, possibly at ACL, so that helped. And then when one of my best friends, Brad Rice, was doing the gig before I was, and when he was leaving the band, I think my name came up. So it fairly organically, it just sort of happened, and Jay called, and it was great. It was a really cool period. I mean, it was a very condensed, maybe 2.5 years, and some touring, and we made that record, which I'm really proud of.
Yeah, that's which if you were listening just 20 minutes ago out there in Radioland, you just heard a track from American Central Desk. Great CD.
That was.
So great experience for you, and y'all have just played with just an amazing array of people. Eleanor, I know you've played with so many people. I mean, Susan Gibson, Terry Hendricks, Bruce Robinson, Kelly Willis. Now, but I am interested because you have, from what I've read, and okay, I've already gotten the John Evans thing wrong, so I'm going to make sure that I get everything about Eleanor right. But now, is it true that you've played with both Diana Ross and Andrea Bocelli?
Yeah, I have a classical background. My mom is an opera singer, and my parents started me on violin when I was pretty young and studied violin in college, and I have a violin performance degree.
Where did you go to school?
I went to TCU.
Oh, okay.
But my dad is a folk singer, and so I kind of always grew up playing by ear and playing in bands, started playing in bands, in high school and college, and, just kind of always did both. And when I graduated college, I was working for a contractor up in Dallas, and she hired me for both of those gigs.
Wow, very cool. That's very, very different. And do you still do any orchestral work?
Less and less these days.
Y'all are pretty busy.
Yeah, I still come back and play some holiday gigs that kind of pay for our trip home during the Christmas season. But less and less orchestral work.
Well, it's great to have your kind of, as someone said, you get to play both fiddle and violin.
Exactly.
So that's great. Well, now we've been talking a lot. I know everyone wants to hear what you all are gonna be playing tonight. So this is the Mastersons who'll be appearing tonight at the Mucky Duck. Why don't y'all start off with a song for us?
All right.